Okay, this lesson I'm going to show you the different textures that you can do with inking. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate on just a random piece of paper, a scratch paper that I have. Okay, the first technique is called hatch. H-A-T-C-H, hatch lines, L-I-N-E-S. Hatch lines is when you're inking a series of lines going the same direction. So what I'm doing is lines, you're inking it like this. Okay, these are called hatch lines. Okay, the next one is called crosshatch. Crosshatch, C-R-O-S-S-H-A-T-C, crosshatch lines. Okay, crosshatch lines is basically hatch lines, but you're doing it twice. Okay, so right here, we're gonna go one line like this. And then you're gonna go back in here and you're gonna ink lines like that. Okay, that's called cross-hatching. Okay, another one you can do is called 3 times cross-hatching. This is something that I do often. 3x cross hatch. Now, 3 times cross hatching is where I do the same 2 techniques on the top, and then I'll add another line on the bottom. So right over here, I'm going to go hatch line. I'm going to cross hatch it. And then I'll turn it, I'll find an angle, which I haven't repeated, and then I'm going to 3 times cross hatch. Okay, what this is you're creating a pattern, and then you're making a darker tone. 4 times cross hatch. As most of you can guess, it's just doing the same thing, and you're going 4 times. So again, one going this direction, making sure lines are parallel to each other, spaced apart evenly. You turn it this way. Okay, so now you have perfect boxes. All those boxes are spaced evenly. Okay, that's the second one. Then we go the 3rd time. Again, you're still spacing your lines evenly, so you're creating a pattern so it doesn't look random. Okay, and then you go 4 times right over here. Very important that your hand is consistent and you're spacing it evenly. Now, what is the difference between this texture and random hatch line textures? I'm going to do some random ones on the side right over here. If I was hatching these lines randomly, it's going to look like that. It can be messy. It just doesn't look good. If I'm cross hatching like this and I'm doing this, it's too messy. It doesn't look like a gradation. 3 times cross hatching, I'm going to demonstrate over here. I go this direction, go this direction. And to some artists, they'll probably be used to doing this. It just does not look as nice as this. And 4 times, it's just going to be a complete mess. Okay, I'll go one direction here, another direction here. And I'm doing this randomly without any control. Okay, like that. And it just, there it is. It just doesn't look that good. But if you space them nice and evenly, it just looks so much better. See that? Like this. Okay, now another inking technique that I do is called stippling. I'm going to demonstrate here, S-T-I-P-P-L-E. This is another inking texture. Stippling is a series of dots that you do, okay? The more dots that you have in one area, the darker that tone will be. With inking, comic book inking, or any kind of pen and ink, what you do is you try to mimic gray areas. So, for example, if I was drawing in pencil, you can draw a dark line like this and gradually go lighter to get a light shade like that. But with inking, you can't really do that. Okay, you can cross hatch, but you cross hatch evenly. So some artists, they'll go in there, they'll start stippling. The more dots you have in between all the other dots, the darker that tone will be. I'm going to go in here and create like a dark tone to a medium tone to a light tone. Light tone, you're going to have little lines like this. And then here, you're just going to add more dots in between to give it that dark tone. And then we're going to go all the way to here where it's going to be really dark. You don't see this in comic books inking that often because it is time consuming, but every so often you will see some artists that will add some of this texture into their comic book inking, because it's just the more textures that you can create in your comic book art, the nicer that it's going to look, and the more difference in variation of subjects that you can create from that. So right here, and it's not me, I'm not just going there and randomly putting dots. I'm controlling where I want those dots to be. Okay, and then we'll have all this as a black area. So here, so we can see how all of this black area goes into a gray, to a light gray, to a dark area. So this is called stippling. Okay. Besides stippling, there's also something called basketing. Basketing is another texture. B-A-S-K-E-T-I-N-G. Basketing is exactly what it sounds like. What you're doing is you're drawing 4 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. And then you're repeating that pattern right next to each other. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is called basketing. It's another inking technique. And then as you go towards the bottom, you're going to go like this, like that, okay? You'll see some artists applying these techniques to like floors, buildings, some of the clothes, some of the objects that they're inking, okay? So I'll add a few in here. And again, this takes a little bit longer, but the quality just looks better. You can always go back in there and do cross basketing. Cross basketing, let me separate this. Cross basketing, C-R-O-S, cross, B-A-S-K-E-T-I-N-G. Okay, a lot of artists, they'll use this for a background fade, where not so nicely as here. They'll just go in here like this. And a little bit more random here. And I'm going to go from a dark area to a light area. So let's have the light area come up to here. And as I'm going towards the light area, you'll notice that the lines that I'm applying gets a little bit shorter. Okay, but as I go into the dark area, just like with the stippling, I'll add more. I'll press down darker, and I'll cross hatch some more. Okay, so this is almost like 4 times cross hatching, 3 cross hatching, 3 times like that. But then you're doing the basketing effect. You're going different directions to create that texture. Okay, right over here. I'm going to continue doing this so you can see how it looks like completed. Okay, it does take a little bit of work, but the final results just looks very nice. Okay, I'm going to go here. Make sure it's a consistent smoothness. Okay, any areas that I see that I can cross hatch another direction, I'll just go in there and add. Okay, so as I'm building up on it, you'll see that it's going from light to a dark area. Light. Some of you may see some of the blue lines here. This blue line is what comic book artists do. Comic book artists, the inkers, especially inkers, they'll have pencil files and they'll convert it into blue on Photoshop. And after they convert it, they'll ink on top of it. Once they're done inking it and they scan the artwork for production, not the blues will disappear. That's why some of the artists still do a blue line. You can also do blue lines. All you gotta do is use Photoshop and go in there and convert the gray pencils into blue lines. And then you'll get that blue line look like this. So I'm going to go in here and do some basketing. And then some artists will go back in and also use white gel pen. And they'll cross hatch some of this. So I'm using white and I'm breaking up some of those lines right over here. I'm breaking it up like this. Just so it breaks up a little bit more. So that's cross basketing. Okay. Now, another technique comic book artists they'll do for the different techniques, different textures. There's something called daggers, which I like to call dagger. A dagger is where you're inking a line. You're starting from thin to thick, and you're creating that line like that. Okay. This is called a D-A-G-G-E-R, dagger. So you're going in there, and you're pressing that line from thin to thick. This is easily achieved with a brush compared to a micron. So I'm going to go in here. I'll start thin, press down. This is called dagger lines, which is basically looking like a dagger. Okay, where you're starting thick, where you're starting thin to thick to thin. Okay, so that's a dagger line. Okay. Now, there's something called blunt. Let me get some more ink in my brush. Okay. So blunt is where you're starting with a B-L-U-N-T, blunts. You're starting with a thick line, you're going thin, and you're going to a thick line. Okay, so right here, see, these are blunts. See, which is I'm pressing down hard, I'm easing up, and I'm pressing down hard, like this. Okay, what you want to do is you want to create a thick to thin to thick. These are called blunts. Okay, another inking texture is called taper lines. Okay, T-A-P-E-R-E-D, tapered, L-I-N-E-S. Taper lines is where you go from a thick shade to a dark area. So you go in here, you're drawing this line, pressing down on it, like this. Okay, you're tapering the lines. So what's happening is you're starting from a thin tip, you're pressing down, and you're getting thicker, like that. Okay, so if you wanted that line to be longer, you just drag that line a little bit longer. Just space them evenly and make sure that line is smooth as you can. You can do cross tapering. Right here, that's taper lines. Next one is called cross taper, C-R-O-S-S-T-A-P-E-R, cross taper. And cross taper is, as you guessed, it's going in there, you're crossing one direction, like this. Okay, after you have that, you turn it, and you're going to continue tapering it into another direction. Just make sure those lines close up like that, and you're tapering it into the lines here. This is cross tapering, and very important that these diamonds that you see in there creates a pattern. Because if you don't create a pattern with the diamonds, it doesn't create a good gradation. See? There's no pattern over here. What you want to do is when you're cross tapering or hatching or cross hatching, you want that pattern to be there. Okay. Now earlier I mentioned you can taper, cross taper, and there's also 3 times cross taper. 3 times cross taper, same, just like you can guess. Right here, you go one direction, press down, close up the line as it gets into the black area, like that. You're going to go in here, close up the line as you get into the black area, like this. Okay, now you have a nice gradation already. And then here, you're going to go very lightly. And then as you go into the black, you're going to press down on your brush. Right over there. Okay, see that nice gradation? That is 3 times cross tapering. Okay, and then earlier I also talked about the different textures, about how you can do basketing, stippling, all these different effects, the taper lines. Some artists, they'll start going from thin to thick. Very important that you learn this, okay? Thin to thick, okay? Now the next lesson is to go from thick and then easing up your brush and then going thin, okay? Tapering backwards, like that. Okay, I'll demonstrate over here. Taper opposite, T-A-P-E, taper different direction, D-I-F-F-E-R-E, different direction, D-I-R-E-C-T-I-O-N. So what I'm doing is I'm starting from a black area. Unlike this one, I'm starting from a white area to a black area. This time I'm starting from a black area. Oh, this is black. I'm pulling out of that. So right here, I'm going to go thick, I press down, and I ease up, like this. I press down, ease up, press down, ease up. Okay? Again, stick with the pattern and try to have your lines as neatly as you can. Ever so often, you can go back in there and kind of like clean your lines a little bit, close them up, because you're also concentrating on negative space. Negative space is the white areas on that line. Okay? So these are all the different textures that you can apply with your inking. There's a lot of different textures that you can go in there, and textures depends on what objects that you're looking for. Like, for example, if I'm inking like a sandy object, I can do this. If I'm doing if I'm inking the ocean, okay, say I'm inking a river. Here's the river. Okay, let's say this is the river. I'm going to apply the dagger lines, okay? So further away, here's the horizon line, and here's the sun, and let's say there's some mountains over here, and here's some clouds, Okay, so if I'm making this river, I'll do the diagonal lines like this, a little bit thinner. And then as I go closer to the viewer, I'll just make those diagonal lines. I control it, and I'll make this a little bit thicker, like that. See, this shows depth in your artwork. Now, if I wanted to create sand texture, I can always go in there and add stippling around the sand to create that sand texture. Okay. If I wanted basketing texture, I can use this basketing technique and go in there and just create those 1, 2, 3, 4 lines like this. And at the same time, create a different perspective. So right here, see, I'm changing it up to give this a 1-point perspective in the inking texture right over here. Okay. And again, you're just doing different, it's just a series of how you use these in certain places to create the different textures. I'm going to show you all the textures right here. So we have hatch lines, we have cross hatch, we have 3 times cross hatch, 4 times cross hatch. This is what not to do. Okay, this is what not to do. We have stippling, we have basketing, cross basketing, diagonal lines, blunts, which is these blunts over here, taper lines from a sharp tip going to the black area, cross taper, 3 times cross taper, taper going from black to a light area. And these are the different textures that you can apply when you're inking comic books.